Hello there, welcome to my channel. My name is Doug and I'm back with another fountain pen review. Today I'm taking another one for the Inquiring Minds team, hence the shirt and the hat. You see, I'm reviewing a pen which I had no personal interest in other than just doing a review. Unfortunately, Moonman, I meant to say MaJohn, wasn't exactly offering a free sample of this pen for review, so I had to buy it. And it's the Moonman A1. But wait, considering that this is from the chief Chinese knockoff company, we should be able to clone their name from the company they are copying. So I'm going to call this a Moon Pilot. The Moonman A1 is almost a perfect copy of the ever popular Pilot Vanishing Point. This one is all in black, so I treated you to some ACCD in the intro. It's similar to ACDC but lacks the quality. And some might say I subjected you to it, I'm sure. I have a Pilot Decimo for comparison. The Decimo is just slightly slimmer than the Vanishing Point, but the guts are identical. So the question Inquiring Minds want to be answered is, how does this $40 Chinese knockoff of a $160 classic fountain pen stack up? Is it worth the money? Or should you just bite the bullet and shell out the extra 120 bucks and get the original? Well, let's find out right now. So this is another pen gravity day because I just received this morning this Asveen vacuum filler fountain pen, which I will be reviewing shortly. But I had another couple of packages as well, and this is one. The tracking numbers don't line up very well, so as best I can tell, this is probably my MaJohn A1, but let's open it up and see. Well, it certainly came in some amazing packaging, and it is indeed my MaJohn A1. I think you might recognize the style of this pen, and it's still called Moonman. Look at that. So the branding has not caught up with the name change, but this is a copy of the Pilot Vanishing Point. And we'll have to see how well that nib works. But so far, that mechanism seems to work just like the Vanishing Point. Comes with a MaJohn booklet, so they changed the name on the paperwork but not on the pen. It's specific to this pen too. That's good. Shows you how to take it apart, and there's English as well as Chinese. So that's always good. I put some English in there. And there's a Moonman converter, an eyedropper, and what looks like a cartridge. So it's probably part of the mechanism. It's probably part of the filling system that has the sleeve cap and the cartridge identical, it seems. It looks at first blush identical to the Pilot. Seems to work just like the Pilot, and that's a nice smooth matte surface. And what I'd like to do today is go over the parts and features of this pen, show some size comparisons, some measurements, and then provide a writing sample. After the writing sample, please stay tuned as I'll talk about what I like and what I don't like so much about this fountain pen. I don't have an actual Vanishing Point with me, but I have compared the measurements of the Vanishing Point with this A1, and they are almost identical. The A1 is about 2 millimeters longer and 1 millimeter thicker than the original, and the A1 weighs 5 grams more at 35 grams. But let's do a side-by-side, part-by-part comparison of the A1 with the Pilot Decimo. This is my wife's Pilot Decimo, which I purloined off her desk, and she wants back right away.
My pen! Excuse me, can I borrow your pen for a sec? Okay. Just don't run off.
From the top, we see that the nib openings and the shutters are almost identical in form and function. You see those doors. There's the Pilot. And the door mechanism with that little hinge and the little gate is almost identical and functions exactly the same. The nose cone is where the clip attaches, and this is a noticeable difference between the two. You can see the seam here on the Decimo is seamless, and it's really very smooth, no transition, whereas on the A1 there's quite a step right there. Maybe you can see it. It's about 1/2 millimeter. The clips are different because the Decimo dispenses with that divot for your fingers, as the clip and the pen is narrower than the vanishing point. So it looks like that A1 clip is almost identical, if not precisely identical, with the vanishing point. But the clip on the Decimo is springy and usable, whereas the A1 is quite stiff. It isn't unusable, it's functional, but it's pretty stiff. The back of the front shaft has Moonman in gray silk screen letters, and the Pilot Decimo has Pilot Japan in silver. The separation between the front shaft and the rear shaft is where the Pilot and the Moonman are most noticeably different. The Decimo and the vanishing point have rounded metal rings at each end of the front and back shafts. On the Decimo, the front shaft ring is smaller and the rear shaft ring is larger. The A1 has a beveled ring to start, and then a flat piece, and then another beveled ring at the rear shaft. And the flat ring has a circle motif that looks like a slot head screw, which is repeated 8 times around the ring. And then the knock shapes are very similar, if not identical. Both pens knock with about the same amount of travel, and they both have the same pressure and almost identical sounds. And the feeling on both pens is very, very close. Let's unscrew them to see the guts. The nib units of both pens are surprisingly similar. In fact, they are swappable. The Decimo works perfectly in the A1 and vice versa. When using the Pilot cartridge with the chrome sleeve cover, it's hard to differentiate between them. The Decimo came with a Con 40 converter, whereas the A1 came with this quite decent little converter, branded Moonman. And this little converter does fit into the Pilot. And with the pen apart, we can see a couple of other differences between the Pilot and the copy. The Pilot has a rubber gasket O-ring right there, where the front and the rear shafts come together, as a vapor seal. The Moonman has nothing. And the threads on the Pilot are much finer and mesh much nicer, and that you can feel that rubber gasket seal as you close it. Keeps it from opening up, and it provides a vapor lock as well. But there's no play or slop in those threads. The Moonman's threads are much coarser, and you can see that there's quite a bit of wobble and play in them. So that concerns me over time. And it's just metal on metal when it closes. That lack of attention to these little details have me concerned for what's going on inside the front shaft shutter mechanism of the Moonman. I won't try to disassemble the front of this pen to find out, but there's supposed to be a rubber cushion that guides and protects the nib from the shutter. That's certainly the case in the Pilot. That mechanism feels okay, but only time will tell how it will hold up after thousands of clicks. And with the nib unit out of the A1, we can see the first thing I noticed with the first inking of this pen. It sheds ink right there at the filler hole. This isn't just from filling or over snapping the knock on the A1. This happened the first time I knocked the pen, and it happens all the time. Again, I don't know if it's just this one or this is a design flaw. Let me know in the comments if you have one of these pens and you experience this too. I know that the Pilot will shed ink like that, and you'll get some ink on your nib, but this is constant, quite a bit of flow of ink that I'm getting on the inside of this pen after only a few days. It's a rather big deal if this pen is going to be useful at all. Let's take a closer look at the nib and feed. The feed on the A1 looks a bit cruder than the feed on the Pilot. The plastic stamping seems a bit cruder. And the 4 retaining clips are different sizes slightly on the Moonman, whereas they're all uniform on the Pilot. I have no idea whether this affects performance or not. I'm just noting the difference. The Moonman nib is labeled Moonman and EF for extra fine. And the Pilot says Pilot 18K 750, that's the gold content, and M for medium. And then there's a gold hallmark, or the Pilot hallmark, on the bottom of the nib, and a P1012, I think that says. That's a serial number. Now, before we leave the insides of these pens, I want to show a standard Pilot cartridge for a moment. Many of you use these standard cartridges every day. My wife's Decimo, she had difficulty with it right from the moment she started using it with a cartridge. It seemed to dry up almost every time she set it down for even a day. I finally discovered the problem. When you insert a Pilot cartridge, the end of the feed pushes that little disc, plastic disc that's in there that seals the ink, inside the cartridge, turns it kind of sideways, and then allows the ink to flow. However, this disc found its way back into position again and sealed the cartridge and the ink at the back of the cartridge. No wonder the feed was starved of ink. I inserted some needle nose tweezers and extracted that little plastic disc out of there, and now the pen works beautifully and stays wet between uses. So if you have that difficulty with flow in your Pilot pen with these cartridges, just get some tweezers and pull that little disc out. I bought the Moonman A1 on Etsy at Sally's Easy Buy store for $28.80 US and $7 shipping. At the time, the pen was only available in this matte black, and you had a choice of one with a clip and one without a clip. They are now another $10 more expensive on average, and the selection has expanded to include piano black, blue, red with chrome trim, and with or without a clip, although many of those color choices are sold out at the moment. Now let's look at some size comparisons. And here is the Moonman A1 with a Pilot Decimo, a Pilot Explorer, a Pilot Metropolitan, and a Pilot E95S. Now let's look at them posted or extended. And here they are posted or extended. The Decimo has an 18 karat gold nib, and the Pilot E95S has a 14 karat gold nib. I like to talk about the Explorer any chance I get to display it, because there are a couple of really cool things about it. One is the nibs are exchangeable with the Metropolitan, but also with the Plumix. So what I did here was, the Plumix is a fairly inexpensive pen, and they come with what is essentially like a 0.7 millimeter stub. So I pulled the nib out of my Plumix and put it into my Explorer, and not only do you have a really nice pen with a great section on it, but it takes a Pilot Con 70 converter, which takes a lot more ink than that little Pilot Con 40, and fits in the Explorer beautifully. A great little sketching pen. Now let's look at some measurements, and I'll be back with a writing sample. And we're back with the writing portion of the review. This is Clairefontaine 90 GSM paper, and this is the Moonman A1 Capless. Moonman. I had the converter pulled on this and put in the empty cartridge, so it ran out of ink. So this is the Moonman A1 Capless, and it is an extra fine steel nib. Let's check the wetness. Very, very dry indeed. The nib is smooth for an extra fine, but has a lot of toothy feedback. And the ink today is Iroshizuku take-sumi. I'm sure I'm not saying that correctly, but that's the way I say it. Here are some close matches to take-sumi from inkswatch.com. As to line variation, well, you can squeeze out a little bit, but this is a very, very stiff nib.
Hey, phrasing!
And the line that this pen produces is 0.2 millimeters, which makes it a Western XXF, extra fine, or a Japanese extra fine. And for our quote, and for some reverse writing. It doesn't feel any different. It's just as much toothy and thin and dry as the right way around.
Too small and dry.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
What?
And for some quick writing. He doesn't seem to have any difficulty keeping up. So, what do I like and what do I not like about this fountain pen? I mentioned at the beginning that I wasn't interested in this pen, but after using it for about a week, I'm still not interested in this pen. But not because I don't think the pen isn't cool. Now that I've been knocking around with it, I think it's totally cool. I just don't like the nib. This extra fine is like trying to paint the side of a barn with a knitting needle. Some of you folks might like this extremely fine nib. It isn't wet at all, but neither is the Pilot Vanishing Point. But I feel the full-size Vanishing Point is much nicer in my hand than my wife's smaller Decimo, and I do like the versatility of just being able to stuff it in a pocket and be ready to go with it. So the question was, is this copycat knockoff worth the $40 price tag? If you like a very fine writing experience and need a pen to throw around and don't care if you lose it, sure. But who is that? I mean, use a pencil or a ballpoint. But if you really like the writing experience of a fountain pen on paper, spend the extra dollars and get the real thing. The Decimo is $144, and the Vanishing Point is $160, and they're both 18 karat gold nibs that write like butter.
They're like butter.
And you can toss them around, stuff them in a bag or in your pants pocket, and they're built to last forever. The other reason to buy an A1 would be if you're unsure if you'd like to have a retractable pen or even have a use for one. I found out it isn't so terrible, and I like it. But now I'm asking myself what you're probably asking yourself too. Is it worth buying the $40 A1 and then purchasing the nib unit of a Vanishing Point which fits the A1 perfectly? Well, let's see. Is that a rhetorical question you're asking me? Or do you want to do the math?
Is that a rhetorical point, or would you like to do the math?
I'd like to do the math.
I'd like that too.
So let's do the math. So the A1 is currently $41.60 with free shipping on AliExpress at Mary's stationery store. Next, a Pilot Vanishing Point 18 karat gold nib from Goulet Pens is $81.15 and shipping to me is $13. And the 18 karat gold Pilot nib units come in EF, F, M, B, and a 1.1 stub. And they're available in gold, rhodium, or black. So that's a total of $135.75 US. And for only another $20 or $30, you have the genuine article in either a Decimo or a Vanishing Point, respectively. So the answer, in my humble opinion, is to buy the genuine article if you want a good writing experience. The steel nib and the suspect engineering because of the threads and the leaking feed issues are enough for me not to recommend this Moonman. However, for me, since I already have the pen, an upgrade to an 18 karat gold black 1.1 stub for $95 might make this pen usable for me. Your mileage may vary.
YMMV.
So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join as a member of my channel too for only 99 cents a month, less than the price of coffee. And I guarantee I will answer your comments in the comment section, and you'll get cool emojis and badges too. And that just leaves it for me to say, thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.